Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today guys we'll be reading Pet Trouble, Mud Puddle Poodle, and let's get started if I can find out what chapter I am on. Let's flip to my chapter. I thought I put a bookmark in, but I guess I didn't. I think I'm on chapter... let's see. Yep, chapter 11. Chapter 11. I sulked in my room for a while, but that got boring, especially after I ran out of homework to do. I tried changing the dresses on my favorite dolls to make myself feel better, but I was sick of all my dolls and their boring dresses. I wanted to play with Buttons. I was pretty sure Buttons didn't want to play with me. I kept remembering the look on her face before she ran away behind the couch. After about an hour, I was ready to go downstairs, but I didn't want to if my brothers were just going to laugh at me. I opened my bedroom door and listened. Miguel music was playing from his room. I opened my bedroom door and listened. Miguel's music was playing from his room, and there were shooting, zapping noises from the den. So someone was playing video games. That when at least two brothers were out of the living room, which meant only half the teasing. I snuck down the stairs and peeked into the living room. Carlos and Oliver were in there with Buttons. I watched for a minute. Carlos was had an old sock in his hand. He threw it to Buttons. She jumped up and tried to catch it, but it flopped over her eyes, which, with a gruff, she bounced sideways and shook her head until it fell off. Then she grabbed the sock in her teeth and shook it until it was dead. And then a few more times for good measure. Then Oliver tried to take the sock away from Buttons. For a while. Buttons went like a toy car, revving up as she tugged and tugged on it, but Oliver snuck it away from her when she let go for half of a second. Yip! Buttons protested, jumping on his knees. Oliver tossed the sock to Carlos. Carlos called, "Buttons, catch!" Buttons threw herself in the air as the sock came flying toward her. This time it landed neatly in her jaws. She looked as surprised as anyone. She mumbled triumphantly around a mouthful of sock. She shook the sock vigorously again. Carlos and Oliver laughed and clapped. I wanted to cry. That wasn't my dog in there. I was the one who had to give her a bath every time she went outside. But then she spent all her time playing stupid boy games with my stupid brothers. It was like my brothers were this special club. I was never allowed to join, but now Buttons could be part of all of it, and I still couldn't. I mean, not that I wanted to, but still, stupid, noisy, messy club. I stomped into my room and threw myself down on the couch. Buttons dropped the sock and sat up to look at me, but I didn't say anything to her or to my brothers. I flipped on the TV and turned on High School Musical, which was still in the DVD player, because Pippa and I had put it in to watch our favorite scene on Monday. I know my brothers hate it, which is just one of many reasons why I love that movie. Buttons is being really good, Carlos said to me. She caught the sock lots of times. Want to see? I turned up the volume on the TV and crossed my arms. Oliver and Carlos played with Buttons a while longer, and then Oliver took her outside while Carlos went upstairs to study. When Buttons came back in, she wasn't even all muddy. Apparently, that was only something she did when I had to clean her. Buttons trotted in through the door ahead of Oliver and bounded over to me. She sat on my feet and gazed up at me. I kept my eyes on the TV, ignoring her. Arroo! Arroo! Whimpered Buttons. She put one paw on my foot when I still wouldn't look at her. She pawed at me instantly. Arroo! Oliver was leaning in the doorway now, looking at us. Oh, all right, I said, picking Buttons up and plopping her on the couch beside me, wagging her tail excitedly. Buttons came over and climbed on my lap. She had to push her head under my elbow to get there, but she was determined. Once she was once she was between my arms, she turned in one direction and then the other. And then she curled up in my lap with her head resting on my left knee. She let out a contented huff. Aw, Oliver said. Sure, I can be her pillow, said. That's all I'm good for. Rosie Button loves you, Oliver said. She wants to play with you. She just wants to play dog games, not people games. She doesn't love me, I said. She hates me. She ran away from me. I stroked her soft little head. She didn't run away from you, Oliver said. She ran away from the nail polish. Remember, dogs have a really strong sense of smell. It probably scared her. Bun shifted and rolled toward me so her paws were in the air, and her head was flopped back. I rubbed her tummy, and she wriggled happily. Oh, I said, I didn't think of that. I'm used to the smell of nail polish by now, but I guess it is pretty strong. Maybe if she gets used to it then, I said. I don't know, Rosie, Oliver said. Think about this. What if she tries to lick it off before it dries? Then, would it be really bad for her, like poison? She wouldn't do that, I said. Would she? She wouldn't do that, I said. Would she? Maybe not, Oliver said. But it could get on her fur, and dogs lick themselves all the time. I wouldn't risk it. I felt awful. I hadn't thought for 1 second about that Buttons would do something like that. I definitely didn't mean to put poison on her nails. Poor Buttons. I'm sorry, Buttons, I whispered, scratching her tummy with one hand and tickling her chin with the other. Buttons nudged my hand until she got it where she could lick it, and then she licked my thumb all the way around. She did like to lick. Poor baby. Okay, Buttons, I said. No nail polish for you. Oliver smiled. Hey, Oliver, I said as he turned to go. Maybe don't tell Mom about this. We won't, Oliver promised. And when Oliver promises something, all the other guys go along with him. Buttons and I smuggled on the couch until dinner time. She didn't even jump out to say hi to Mom and Dad when they came home. She just wanted to sleep on my lap and get petted. I felt much better by the time I went to bed. I still wished there was something to make me feel like Buttons was really my dog. On Wednesday, my mom spends the whole day at her boutique. So usually Michael and Pippa, Michelle and Pippa, and I walk down there after school since it's not very far. I love being in the store with all my all the pretty fancy clothes. Mom lets us try things on if we're careful. She calls me her brilliant little helper. When I agree, the shoes are accessories for her. Then, when we walked up at the boutique on Wednesday afternoon, the little bell over the door jingled and I heard a ruff from the back of the store. Pippa looked at me. Was that? Buttons came flying out of the back room and threw herself on my legs, jumping and wriggling and yipping like she hadn't seen me in years. Buttons, I cried. What are you doing here? The store manager, Ashley, leaned over the counter and smiled at my puppy. Isn't she a sweetheart? She said, Ashley. Ashley has spiky, short blue hair and this funny British accent that we all think is probably fake. She spent like one summer in England 4 years ago, but otherwise she still lived there. She loved it there, though, and now she drinks a lot of tea and talks like the Queen of England, like she calls cookies, biscuits, and sweaters, jumpers, and sneakers, trainers, and which is just funny if you ask me, and probably confusing for some of the customers. But she also really nice to me. So I like her, especially when she calls me love. As in, hand me that jumper, would you, love? Cheers. Your mum brought her in for the day, Ashley said. She's been a right star with all our ladies. Haven't you, love? she cooed at Buttons. "Aw, are you popular?" Michelle asked Buttons, scratching her behind her ears. "I'd buy whatever you're selling," Pippa agreed. Classic physiological marketing strategy. Whatever that meant, so I jumped in and cut her off. "Mom, we're here," I called. "Be right out," she called. She's measuring Mrs. Pearlman for some alterations. Ashley explains. Wait, she's measuring Mrs. Pearl. She's measuring Mrs. Pearlman. Measuring Mrs. Pearlman for some alterations. Ashley explains. Mrs. Perlman is one of Mom's best customers because the boutique will adjust anything for free if it's bought there. Mom just takes the customers into the back room and does some measuring and cutting and stitching like it's like a miracle. How suddenly any dress could look good on someone. Mrs. Perlman is short and very round and really pretty, and she can never find anything that fits her anywhere. But everything Mom fixes up looks amazing on her. That's one reason I like fashion. I think the right clothes can make anyone look and feel prettier. I'd love for someone to put on a dress I designed and say, "Wow, I feel beautiful now." Mom gets that reaction all the time when the alters dress alters for her customers. And I want to make dresses for people that are all shapes and sizes, like me and Pippa and Michelle and Ashley and Mrs. Perlman are. Of course, they all have to like pink, but who doesn't? Me. Me. "Let's see if there are any earnings," Michelle said, heading over to the accessory wall. I picked up Buttons and brought her with us. She felt like a teddy bear in my arms, and soft and floppy and snuggly. She poked her nose under my chin and licked my neck. Wagging her tail like that was her funny way of saying hello. Pippa doesn't have pierced ears yet, but Mom makes sure the store carries clip-on earrings too. Sometimes I think she does that because she noticed that Pippa was feeling left out. But I'm not sure if that's too much of thinking. Mom has magical ones, and we're talking and we're I think she does. Wait, let me check if my microphone is on. Yes, it is. Okay. Pippa was feeling left out, but I'm not sure if that's too much like thinking. Mom has magical powers. Anyway, we found some pretty dangling ones, and we're taking turns lifting them up to our ears and looking in the mirror. When the bell over the door jingled again, I turned around and saw that if it was Miru, Oliver's girlfriend. She actually comes into the boutique a lot. My mom is really good at picking clothes, both for teenagers and grown-ups. That's how Oliver and Miru met. He was at the store helping Mom change the artwork off of the walls. On the walls. He was up on a ladder holding a Frida Kahlo print while Mom said, "That way a bit, no the other way." Okay, down an inch. When Miru walked in and started laughing at him. Blah, 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 love at first sight, whatever. "Hi, Miru," I said. "Hey, Rosie," she said, coming over to us. "Hi, Pippa, hi, Michelle." See how cool Miru is? She even remembers her boyfriend's little sister friend's name. "Is this your new puppy?" she asked. "Yeah, this is Buttons," I said, flapping one of her paws at Miru. "Oh my goodness, you're cute." Miru, oh my goodness, you're cute," Miru said to Buttons. She rumpled Buttons' fur around her face, and Buttons wagged her tail. "Oliver's not here," I said. "I know," Miru said with a huge sigh. He had to go home and work on his college applications. She put quotes around the words. "He's really worried about them," I said. "Well, so am I, but I still want to spend time with him," Miru said. "I mean, it's like he can't wait to get out of here and away from me." She started flipping through the rack of dresses on sale. I followed her with Buttons in my arms. "That's crazy," I said. "He talks about you like all the time. It'd be annoying if you weren't like so awesome." Miru grinned at me. Her nose stud today was a little green emerald and sparkled in the overhead spotlights. I wished my hair were straight like hers, and Pippa's. Mine was these waves in it that I can get rid of. Well, when the boys start lining up to date you, Rosie, just remember to go for one that can actually express his emotions, okay? Like one who actually cares about stuff and can say he does instead of being all serious and focused on his work and blah blah blah." I didn't know what she meant. Did she think Oliver was like that? That Oliver was like that? That Oliver was like that? Rosie, Michelle, called before I could ask Miru any questions. Are these earrings really $5? She held up a pair of dangly copper-colored lightning bolts. If that's what the tag says, my mom said, popping out from behind the curtains to the back room. She smiled and said hi to everyone. Mrs. Perlman followed her out and went up to the counter with a huge pile of clothes. I think the store would survive even if Perlman were the only customer. That's it? Ooh, I want them, Michelle said, digging in her pocket for money. Pippa looked down at her earnings in her hand, Pippa looked down at her earnings in her hand, then put them slowly back on the shelf. $5, Mom said, taking the earnings as Michelle handed them to her. I think we can make these a present, Michelle dear. It'll be a celebration of our new family member. She patted Button's head. Pippa and Rosie, you can each pick out a pair from that shelf too. Really? I said. Sure, Mom said, her eyes twinkling. But don't you go for the expensive ones on the next shelf. Miss Rosie, I won't, I said. I already knew I wanted the ones that looked like little pink pearl raindrops. I put Buttons down on the floor so I could pick them up. Next to me, Pippa picked up the one she'd been holding again. They each had a pretty dark, sparkly blue stone in the middle, with lacy silver flower petals around it. Wow, Pippa, those are so you, I said. I helped her clip them onto her ears, and she looked at herself in the mirror, tucking her pale blonde hair back so she could see them. Thanks, Mrs. Sanchez, she said with a smile. Yeah, thanks, Mrs. Sanchez, Michelle said. Suddenly there was an enormous crash from behind the curtain. We all looked around in surprise, and I realized that Buttons wasn't at my feet anymore. Uh-oh, I said. This is very bad, guys. Oh no. If glass broke, that's gonna be bad. Chapter 12. Barked something in the back room. I got to the curtain first, then pulled it back. I saw Buttons tearing around the room with a purple knit hat stuck over her head. It was covering her eyes, so she kept crashing into things. As she ran, she already knocked over Mom's mannequin and a stack of hat boxes. I jumped in to the rescue, but a long dress hanging from a rack, dragged it behind her past the table and sent a whole carton of sewing supplies flying. Safety pins, buttons, and needles scattered everywhere. Buttons! I yelled. Buttons, stop! Buttons, shh. Buttons, shh. Mom said calmly. Buttons stopped running when she heard her voice. She pulled frantically at the hat on her head, and then lay down and started rolling and rubbing it on the carpet, trying to shove it off. Mom stepped over the fallen mannequin and whisked Buttons up off the floor before she could step on any pins and hurt her tiny paws. She pulled off the hat, and Buttons pawed at her nose with both paws, looking bewilderedly. Heavens! Heavens! Ashley said in her funny accent. This is so hard to do this British accent, guys, because I'm trying to do a British accent like a girl instead of a boy. So I'm going to keep trying. Ashley said in her funny accent. Wow, Mira said. That was a fast-acting disaster. Poor Munchkin, I said as my mom put her in my arms. You're the silliest dog I've ever met, and the messiest. Look what you did. The back room was kind of a catastrophe. Buttons buried her face in my shoulder like she didn't want to look at it. Her heart was going really fast, and her little chest went up and down as she panted. So, of course, we had to spend the rest of the afternoon cleaning it up and picking Buttons out of the carpet. Pippa and Michelle were really helpful. We took turns keeping Buttons out of the way while the other two put things back together. At the end, Mom said we really earned our earnings, and she wanted to buy us ice cream too, which was very nice considering it was my dog that had caused all the mess in the first place, but I didn't remind her of that, so we left Ashley to close the boutique and walked up to TCBY, where we could sit outside. We go there all the time because they have sorbet for Michelle. She can't have anything with milk in it because she's allergic, but she loves peach sorbet. And Pippa and I love frozen yogurt. So everyone is happy. Button sat on my lap while I ate mine, and she didn't even try to steal any. Well, only a little anyway. If only every mess Buttons made led to ice cream. I thought maybe I would mind having such a naughty dog. Later that night, when Mom came in to say good night to me, I asked after if she thought Buttons would always be a bad dog. A bad dog? Mom said, sounding surprised. She sat down on the bed beside me. Do you think Buttons is that bad? Buttons lifted her head and she heard her name. She still refused to sleep on her fancy dog bed. What she really seemed to love was my t-shirts. And I accidentally dropped one on the floor on Tuesday, and she immediately grabbed it and rolled it on, and then she fell asleep on it. I felt bad taking it away from her, since it seemed kind of cute that she liked it. So it was still on the floor, which was totally crazy for me, because I always put everything away immediately, and Buttons was sleeping on it again, which made me glad again that she didn't shed like other dogs. Well, she's always digging and running around and making a mess, I said. It's like she completely crazy sometimes. I'd lost count of how many baths I'd have to give her already. I don't understand why she won't lie down and be good. She's doing that right now, Mom said. Yeah, 'cause it's bedtime, I said. That's still pretty great for a puppy. Mom said a lot of them cry all night. She's already sleeping very well. You were sweet to give her one of your t-shirts. I bet that makes her feel close to you. Oh, I said, I like that way of looking at it. But I think you're onto something, Mom said. All dogs behave better when they get enough exercise. Maybe we need to tire her out a little more, so she'll be calmer when she's home with us. How do we do that? I said. Why don't you take her to the park tomorrow? Mom said. I'll get one of your brothers to go with you. You should keep her away from you should keep her away from other dogs. We don't know, but I bet she would really love it." "Okay," I said. I'm not really a park person. Danny loves the park that's near us. He's ridiculous. He's a ridiculous sports guy. So he likes having all that space to run around and hit baseballs and practice soccer and whatever. When I go to the park, I usually like, "Okay, now what? I don't, wait. Okay, I'm on the right page. Okay, now what? I don't want to run around, and I'm always worried about getting grass stains on my clothes. But if it means tiring Buttons out so she'd be a good dog, I was willing to try it. I turned out the only brother who was free after school on Thursday was Miguel, and boy did he grumble about it. I didn't want to see I don't want to be seen with that furball. Mom, why do I always have to babysit? This is totally embarrassing." And on and on and on. But Danny had soccer practice and Carlos had mathlete meeting, and Oliver was taking a practice test, SAT test. So it had to be Miguel, which was his only fault anyway, since he doesn't do any except fix his hair and wonder why girls don't talk to him. He slouched around, grumbling, while I clipped Button's cute pink leash onto her collar. "I could go by myself," I said. "It's only a few blocks away." "Yeah, right," Miguel said. "I'd be grounded for the next century if I let you go by yourself. But listen, if we see anyone from my class you don't know in my class there, you don't know me, okay? And that's definitely not my dog." I rolled my eyes. "Fine by me." I put some plastic bags and a bottle of water and a little plastic bowl in my pink purse, and I changed into my oldest jeans so that I'd be ready if Buttons decided to climb on me with her muddy paws again. Then we started off for the park. Buttons loved her leash. Buttons loved her leash. She kept jumping on it and tried to pin it down with her paws and getting it tangled with her legs. She loved it so much it took her almost 2 whole blocks to realize that she was outside. Then she had to stop and sniff every blade of grass. A couple of times she tried to stop and roll in the dirt, but I tugged her along so she wouldn't do that. Miguel walked a few steps ahead of us and pretended we weren't there. Whenever we stopped, he would stop too, looking around all la, just standing here on a street corner. Whatever, he pulled out his comb and ran it through his hair a few times, smoothing all the flyaway bits. I don't even remember when Miguel became such a dork. He tried so hard to seem like a macho, though stud for the girls, but I'd never been any of them talk to him. But when we got to the park, Miguel said, "There's a dog run over this way." "What's that?" I asked. "It's a fenced-in area where you can let your dog off the leash," Miguel said, "so she can play with other dogs." "I don't want her to play with other dogs yet," I said. "Let's just walk and let her sniff things." Miguel fidgeted and shoved his hands in his pockets. He kept looking around like he was afraid he was being watched. But Buttons was the happiest I'd ever seen her. She ran in big circles on the grass in front of us as we walked. The wind blew a leaf past her nose. With a ferocious yip, she pounced on it and blinked in surprise when it didn't try to run away. She poked it with her little black nose and then looked up at me like, "Did I win? Did I win?" And of course she tried to dive under every bush we saw. I could already see tiny green grass stains on her little white paws. Small twigs and leaves hooked in her honey-colored fur as she romped through the park. But I couldn't really get mad at her for it. She was having such an amazing time. As we got closer to the pond in the middle of the park, I heard a loud baying sound. It was so loud and strange that I didn't realize for a minute that it was a dog barking. Buttons knew right away. She stood on her hind legs and lifted her nose in the air, leaning on the end of the leash with her little front paws folded around, and she looked kind of like these meerkats I'd seen on TV. Arroof! 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 Went the mystery dog. Then I saw the barker barreling toward us. It was a brown and black and white with floppy ears. A beagle! I was pretty sure. A black and red leash trailed around its neck. It went aroof one more time and bounded up to Buttons. I was about to grab my puppy out of the way when I saw the dog's owner running after her. "I'm sorry," she yelled. "That's my dog. She's harmless, just noisy." "I'm sorry." I knew who she was. Ella Feingold, the older sister of annoying Isaac. She was in Danny's class at school last week. She done this hilarious, awesome school song at the talent from show with her beagle. So I decided it was okay for Buttons to say hi. The dog skidded to a stop in front of Buttons and stood there wagging its tail and panting goofily. Buttons sniffed her all over, and the dog stayed perfectly still. Then Buttons did the cutest thing. She stood up on her hind legs, put her front paws together with me. "Play with me, play with me." "Trumpet, you whipped thing," Ella said, catching the beagle's leash. She was panting even more than the dog, and her curly brown hair and fluffing out everywhere. "Hey, I remember you," Miguel said to her. "You won the talent show at Rosie's school." I did, Ella said, turning pink, "but mostly it was because of Trumpet." She patted the beagle's side, and Trumpet looked up at her with his adoring grin. "Yeah, it was awesome," Miguel said, letting Trumpet sniff his hand. Buttons flipped her paws madly at Trumpet again. "Aw, she's so cute," Ella said. "Ella," a voice called in the distance. I saw a boy waving from her at the playground. It looked like Nico Starvos, who's in Danny's class too. And next to him was a girl I thought might be Rory Mason. She's like the total opposite of me. I guess in a different way, like than Pippa is. Like, I never seen Rory without scrapes all over her knees and elbows, and I don't think she'd be caught dead in pink. Coming, Ella said. "See you guys later," she said, and dragged Trumpet away. Buttons sat down looking disappointed. "Don't worry, Buttons," I said. We'll find you some friends soon." "That's a pretty cool dog," Miguel said, nodding at Ella and Trumpet. as they ran off. Still not big enough, though. Miguel, said a girl's voice. Miguel? Said a girl's voice. Miguel froze. He'd been so busy saying hi to Trumpet, and he'd forgot to say, stay away from me and Buttons. And now the worst nightmare had appeared behind us. Cheerleaders. Oh no. I'm gonna read you a little of chapter 13, like to the second paragraph, because this looks good. Chapter 13. I didn't know their names, but I'd seen these two girls outside the high school sitting under a tree and flipping their hair as the boys went past. I was pretty sure they were cheerleaders. Oh my gosh, said the short blonde one. She was staring at Buttons. Is that your dog? Might as well read this chapter. The tall one with red hair asked Miguel. She pointed at Buttons and tilted her head so the sun caught at the shiny highlights in her hair. No, Miguel said quickly. He was totally blushing. Nuh-uh, nope. She is so cute, the blonde girl squealed. Okay, I actually squealed there. And I feel so girlish, which I feel like really weird right now because I'm acting like a girl and I am a boy. And I hope you do not make fun of me in the comments if it is opened. Please don't. Please don't make fun of me. She is so cute, the blonde girl squealed. She talked like every other word was in its own sentence, with all these dramatic pauses in between. I just love her. I just want to spend all day smuggling her. Me too, said the redhead. Is she yours? She asked me. She's ours, Miguel said quickly. That's what I meant. Both of ours, our families. Huh, nice save, Miguel. I could see which way the wind was blowing. She's really mine, I said. Wow, Miguel, you're so sweet to take your little sister and her puppy to the park, said the redhead. She tilted her head again. I was pretty sure she was doing it deliberately to show off her hair in the sunlight. It looked accidental, but she had kind of a faraway expression, like half of her brain was thinking about how she looked all the time. Yeah, well, I'd like to help out, Miguel said. Aren't you going to introduce me to your friends? I said to him. He turned even redder. This is Catalan, he said, nodding at the redhead, and this is Sarah. This is my sister Rosie. Hi, Catalan, said her gaze drifting back to Buttons. I could tell she was going to forget my name before she even left the park. Definitely not as cool as Miro. My parents got us a dog this summer, Sarah said, but he was so big and furry and all over the place. I was like, yuck. I mean, please, couldn't we have a small dog if we have anything? You know what I mean, she said to Miguel, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. Yeah, totally. Miguel always loved small dogs, I said sweetly. I said, Miguel, don't you want a big, tough, scary dog? And he was like, no. Wait, no, I skipped a lot. Yeah, totally, Miguel said. Small dogs are ever so much cuter, Catalan said, flipping her hair back. I know, Miguel said eagerly. They're way better. Miguel was always loved small dogs, I said sweetly. I said, Miguel, don't you want a big, tough, scary dog? And he was like, no. We should definitely get something tiny and cute and fuzzy. Miguel shot me a glare. Aw, that's adorable, Sarah said. crouching to pat Buttons. Buttons nosed at her hand, and she pulled it back quickly. She doesn't bite, right? Of course not, I said, often offended for Buttons. I was more likely to bite Sarah than Buttons was. So what happened with your dog, Miguel? Miguel said. I said, more likely to bite. Of course, I said, offended for Buttons. I was more likely to bite, Sarah said. But Sarah than Buttons, I was. So that what happened with your dog? Miguel asked Sarah. We gave him to my sister's best friend, little friend's brother, Sarah said. Like, good luck with that. Because he was totally a total lunatic. He always ran away like all the time. All the time, smart dog, I said. So, what are you doing here? I asked. These two didn't seem like they'd come to the park to play baseball. We always come to the park on Thursdays, Catalin said. That's when the boys' ultimate frisbee practices. We're cheerleaders, Sarah explained, so we figure we should support them while they're practicing. She exchanged a little smile with Catalin. I had a feeling if we followed them to the ultimate playing field, we'd find that a lot of the boys playing with their shirts off. Oh my gosh. Don't talk about that. That's really gross. And not good for kids like me. I don't know why I'm reading this, but it's for reading. Reading is the best. I love reading. With their shirts off. That's great, Miguel said. That's so cool. So maybe we'll see you and your puppy next Thursday, Catalin said to Miguel. Buttons rolled onto her back, and Catalin gingerly patted her tummy. Yeah, definitely, Miguel said. We're always here, me and my puppy. I managed not to laugh, but it was hard. We should go, I said to Miguel. Buttons is getting tired. Buttons? Sarah squealed. That is so adorable. Really? Miguel said to me. She doesn't look tired. Buttons flopped over into the grass. Her eyes were drooping and her paws twitched like she was already dreaming. Miguel, I said firmly. Okay, bye, Sarah said. Bye, Miguel, Catalin said. Her voice made his name sound much more grown-up than when anyone in our house said it. I think those girls, Catalin and Sarah, like Miguel. So yeah. The girls sashayed away with their arms linked, giggling. Miguel looked like he'd been run over like by a spaceship. His expression was all dazed and silly looking. Come on, I said, grabbing his wrist and dragging him out of the park. Buttons bounced to her paws again as soon as I moved. She found a few more bushes to dive into on our way out. Whenever she spotted the leash out of the corner of her eye, she spun around and pounced on it, which made walking in a straight line kind of difficult, but it was pretty funny. Then they talked to me, Miguel said in a wondering voice. That when we were a block away from the house, when we were a block away from the park, Did you see that? That really happened, didn't it? Caroline and Sarah talked to me. I guess you could call that talking, I said. Mostly that they flipped their hair at you. They've never talked to me before, Miguel said. I can't believe that they know my name. How's my hair? Does it look okay? They didn't care about your hair, I said. They just wanted you to notice their hair. They just wanted you to notice their hair. They have great hair, Miguel said dreamily. I forbid you to date those girls, Miguel. They're really total dimwits. They'd love buttons, Miguel said. The puppy looked up at him with her tongue hanging out, with her tongue hanging out of the side of her mouth. She wagged her tail, and he bent down to ruffle her fur. You're the best dog ever, he said. Wow, best dog ever, I said. What's happened? Too small, too fuzzy, too embarrassing. Well, Miguel said loftily, if I had known that girls like little dogs, I would have voted differently from the beginning, wouldn't I? Wouldn't I? Wouldn't I? What happened to the small... Well, Miguel said laughingly, if I had known that girls liked little dogs, I would have voted differently from the beginning, wouldn't I? Wouldn't I? Wouldn't I? I'm a girl, I said. That didn't tip you off. Yeah, but you're Rosie, he said. That's true, and I'm very glad to be Rosie and not Sarah or Catalin. Thank you for very much, even if they'd have great hair. Wait a second, guys. I'm cutting something real quick. I have my skin. It's peeling somehow. I don't know how. I'm using a nail clipper to cut it off. Okay, got it off. Yay. Okay, let's continue. On the plus side, Miguel's newfound love for buttons meant that it was easy to convince him to give her a bath when we got home. I supervised that he was the one who got all wet, which was very satisfying. Then we dried off and took her into the living room. She rolled around madly on the couch, sprinting from one end to the other and nose diving into the cushion with happy ruffs. Miguel sat on the couch and laughed. What are you doing, Danny asked, poking his head into the room. Playing with buttons, I said. Isn't she hilarious? Miguel said. Miguel, Danny said, sounding shocked. Don't tell me you've gone over to the dark side too. Hey, I said. Well, she is cute, Miguel said with a shrug. Then he buried his hand in his hands. This is terrible, he said. I thought I could count on you guys. He pointed at Buttons. That is not a real dog. Merlin is a real dog. Real dogs are big and chase tennis balls. One day I'm going to get a real dog, and until I do, I want nothing to do with that fluff head. With that fluff head. Good, I shouted after him as he stomped away. You leave her alone. She's too good for you anyway. He'll come around, Miguel said. Okay, I have to go email my friends Carol and Sarah. Craziness. He left the room, shaking his head. Buttons flopped over his head on my lap. Boys are ridiculous, Buttons, I said, scratching her belly. Sneeze, she agreed. And in half a minute she was asleep. When Dad got home from work, he found us on the couch. I was reading, and Button had rolled sideways, so she was sleeping on her four paws. In the sideway, she was asleep, with all four paws in the air. Dad grinned, putting his briefcase down on the door. Shh, I said. It totally worked. We took her to the park, and now she's all tuckered out. Oh, Dad said. What a good dog. Have your brothers been playing with her? They all like her now, I said, except Danny. And I don't care because he's lame anyway. Great, Dad said. Want to make some peppermint meringue cookies? He reminded. He remembered. My dad was so busy. I always expected him to forget stuff like that. But he had brought home all the ingredients we needed and everything. Button stayed asleep. Button stayed asleep. Button stayed asleep. Where am I? Button stayed asleep on the couch while I went to the kitchen with Dad. Later, I saw Oliver in there patting her head. He looked all mopey again, but then she batted at his hand. He laughed. The cookies came out totally perfect. Dad separated his eggs for me. Dad separated the eggs for me. For me, but he let me hold the electric beater to make the meringue all fluffy and peaked. We put pretty pink and purple glittery sprinkles on top of them, and in the end it was the prettiest batch of cookies I'd ever seen. Of course, then I had to keep a close eye of the kitchen all night to make sure none of my brothers snuck in and ate them. Hey, I yelled when I caught Danny peeking under the foil. Can't I have one? He said. Just one. No, you can't, poodle hater, I said. Not unless you bring 25 cents for school tomorrow. And buy one like everyone else. Bossy boots, he grumbled, wandering back out to the den. The Africans will thank you when their goat arrives, I called cheerfully after him. Buttons was calm and sleepy for the rest of the evening. When we let her out, she trotted into the yard and then came right back in with no digging at all. She slept at my feet while I did my homework. At one point, her paws started twitching, and she made these cute tiny yips in her sleep, as if she was dreaming about racing around the park with Trumpet. When I went to bed, I tried putting on my t-shirt in the dog bed and tucking Buttons in there. I don't know if she was just too tired to climb out, but she curled right up and went to sleep in her bed. Finally, I said. Why couldn't you do that from the start? I was happy that Buttons was so sweet and good after her trip to the park, but I was worried too. I couldn't take her to the park every day. I had to bake sale tomorrow after school. That would be a lot more homework later in the school year, and I wanted to try out for the school play this year, which would mean lots of rehearsals. How was I going to make sure Buttons got enough exercise to be a good dog all the time? Chapter 14, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to tune in next time for the last two chapters. And my iPad's almost dead, which I'm glad that I finished right in time. And anyways, guys, peace out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment all down below. And tune in next time. Bye, guys. Hope you're enjoying this book so far. And see you next time. Bye. See you next time.